Right, welcome back to Business My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kiagiri, just in time for your economic review. And we're going to look into issues that we have prepared for you this morning. Now, I do know that you're waking up to news of Safaricom half-year results. Fine, we're going to talk about that before the end of this week. And also, you're also waking up to news of the massive losses that Kenya Power is standing in at the time when announcing that they have plans for a 20% hike in your electricity charges. Fine, we're also going to talk about before the end of this week, but this morning I want us to begin on the biggest issue they're waking up to: debt issue in the country, which we do know is now close to 7.5 trillion, or is projected to reach 7.5 trillion if everything goes as it is. From the budget parliamentary committee, which says that our budgetary demands are quite high, and if we go on with the way the things are going, that we are bound to reach 7.5 trillion by 2022. What does that mean now for our public debt consumption? Okay, let's look at that data that we have for you this morning in terms of our public debt. And you can actually see that. Let's first start with what has been our domestic debt and look at it from June 2020 up to where we are right now. And I want us to go back to June 2019. You can actually see, yes, it has always been an upward trajectory. We never seem to stop. All right, let's talk about our external debt as well this morning. That's where we are. And we're giving you from 2015 to 2020 as well. Same story is that, yes, it is quite correspondent with whatever it is, our domestic and public debt here in the country. So this morning we are asking the question, what should we do to stop this? And to help us therefore understand or put these issues into context, we are joined by Odhiambo Ramogi and Abraham Muthago. Let me start with you, Odhiambo Ramogi. Yes. Now, we're being told that it can actually get to 7.5 trillion by 2022, meaning we're just a couple shy of the 9 trillion debt ceiling that we just introduced to the other day. Do we risk getting into a crisis when it comes to managing our debt?
Thank you very much, Simba, for having me in the show. Yes, we do, unfortunately so. And we've been in this space for a very long time. But let me tell you something that makes me most angry about this debt issue. Under the Kibaki administration, our debt management was spectacular. We were doing at less than 30% of GDP.
Yes.
And the economic growth was sterling. You remember we were doing, I think we did around 7%. We peaked in around 2006, 2007, before the post-election violence. The violence brought it down to 2%, but still, if you do an average of the whole of Kibaki administration, we were doing 5%.
Yes.
In terms of growth. Under the Jubilee administration, our debt levels have gone to higher than 50%. Some put it at 59, others at 65, but it is very high because we are well past the 50% that is recommended. But at the same time, our growth rate is still 5%, which means the debt that we are taking, hundreds of billions that we are taking, is not making any difference to our growth narrative. And in fact, we believe strongly that if we did not take the amount of debt that we have taken, we probably will be doing much better in terms of economic growth. And so one wonders, why are we burdening the country so much? And yet at the same time, it's not making any difference in our economic growth. It's not making any difference in our development. And so those are some of the questions that we're asking. But as we are right now, things are not looking good.
All right, now let's not forget let's get what the projections by the Parliamentary Budget Office that now show that the country's debt, therefore, Abraham, is expected to touch 7.5 trillion mark by June 2021, and that's where we are. Now, the office further is concerned that the ongoing Kenya's debt demand could touch the 9 5.2 trillion in the 2022-2023 financial year. Okay, now let's see exactly where it stands, Abraham, this morning. Now, Kenya's debt level already stands at 15% above the national debt of the 6.6 trillion as of June 2020, which has already been largely attributed to the impact of low generation of domestic revenue and pressure from expenditure on the ongoing capital projects. Let's leave it there, Abraham. It stands at 15% above where we should be. And I want to take you back, Abraham, to what our law was before we expunged the 9 trillion mark. We had that golden rule that says, look, guys, you can't borrow more than 50% of your GDP, that you got to keep it in check. We took it out. We introduced an absolute figure, which we seem to be going for. Now, let me take you back to what the UN also put Kenya on the spot for. Now, we're supposed to go for a debt relief by the G20 countries, which was being offered across the board. But funny enough, even countries with a healthier debt vis-a-vis GDP, they ran for it, Abraham. But we didn't go for it. My question for you would be, is that Okuri saying that if I go for that relief, because my debt repayment is actually based on borrowing, and then this DSSI, if it confines me, then I'm at the risk of defaulting, which therefore begs the question, if we can't take a reprieve on debt, because then again we have to borrow, and we're already defaulting, Abraham?
You know, I think we are in very dangerous territory.
Yes.
And I agree with my brother. What he's saying is
yes.
that we're in a space that we need to be very, very careful.
Yes.
The first thing, you remember, yes, the previous law was very good because
yes.
what it did, it capped debt as a ratio of GDP.
Yes.
That way, you have to grow your GDP for you to grow your borrowing. But now we threw that out and put an absolute figure. Nobody was told how 9.2 was arrived at. Nobody knows why 9.2 trillion was the magical figure.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I have no problem. Even if we get to 9 or if we get to 7, the issue is, are we able to service our debt levels? Right now, we're spending almost 1 trillion shillings on debt service. KRA is collecting about 1.5, 1.6 trillion. If you add the public wage expenditure, you already passed that amount. So what does that mean? It means the truth of the matter is that we probably are living beyond our means. And what it means that now, you remember the other day, we've gone to IMF for budget support. Now we are borrowing to finance recurrent expenditure.
Yes.
Those are precursors for almost falling over the cliff. So to come back to your question is, yes, to look at it from a ratio perspective is not a bad thing. That yes, we are at 65% of GDP, we are at 50%. There are countries who even at 100%, but they manage their debt. But the question is, as my colleague has said, when this money comes in, there should be an effect in the economy.
Yes.
You see, because if you take debt and it goes in and spurs growth, then take as much of it as you want.
Yes.
Because it means it goes in and creates cash flow that is enough to pay it and grow the economy.
Yes.
But now I think we're having the opposite. The money is coming, but it's not spurring. So what is the problem? What is the problem? What is not happening?
Yes.
So it means whatever we are doing is not working and it's not sustainable. So if we continue this way, then we're already in the trap of borrowing to pay. And then once we get to that level, then the default may not be far off.
Yes.
So I think it's high time we decided whether we want to continue pushing deficit budgets. Because remember, even in the same Kibaki administration, we balanced our budget. There was a year we did. So balanced budget is not far removed. And I think it should be the way we should start going.
Yes.
Because the truth of the matter is, every time putting a 3 trillion budget, knowing very well you can only collect 1.5, means that 1.6 is borrowed by design.
Yes.
And as foreign lenders are starting to fall off, then we'll start putting pressure on domestic borrowing. And you can see the trajectory.
Yes.
The moment we start borrowing domestically, we start squeezing out, we start creating a problem within the credit space for the local people.
Yes.
So, in a nutshell, solutions are there, and they've always been on the table. There was relief, we didn't go for it. It's not very clear why we didn't go for that,
yes.
for that relief. Debt restructuring has been on the table. These are things we need to do very quickly.
Yes. Abraham, I'm going to come back to you on that debt restructuring, because now it seems as if we have run into a dead end because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, Ramogi, you're going to have to take that question first, therefore, because if you look at the data that we have for you in terms of the way in which our debt cycle has risen, then you actually start to say that when we got into the COVID-19 pandemic, that graph again shot up in terms of the way in which we were borrowing, with even recently the Treasury announcing that they were planning to borrow back again more domestically because of the deficits that the taxman carry was running into. So, wow, Ukuri Yatani came into the office, Ramogi, and we can actually call him a new man in that office, telling us, you see, what I'm going to do is shift the country from the expensive commercial loans and go into cheaper collateral and bilateral loans. Fine. Do you think now that plan that he had is already thrown to the dogs because of the COVID-19 pandemic? Because that promise was before we went into the COVID-19 pandemic. Given in point, we are back again to the IMF for another loan support. We were there just 6 months ago for another loan support. What does that mean? Have we thrown off that plan?
Well, first of all, let me perhaps try and explain what my colleague said. I was struggling to hear him, but I heard him talk about something about to the effect that money is supposed to come in, create a multiply effect, and then from that money that is generated in the multiply effect in the economy, you pay the loan. The problem with the loans that Africa is receiving this time around is they never land here. The money is somewhere in China. The contractor is in China. The material supplier is in China. So the money leaves Bank A in China, goes to Bank B in China, and then Bank C in China. And so what gets here is perhaps 10% what you used to pay the casual laborers. And that's why the money is not creating the multiply effect it should create in this local economy.
Yes.
And so that makes a very big problem in terms of economic management.
Yes.
But on the other hand, you've asked a question about the policy direction that Ukuri Yatani had intimated that he will take as regards debt management.
Yes.
Well, the financial management at Treasury is usually funny sometimes. Because when trouble or pandemic like this comes around, they throw away all the plans they had in mind and start to panic. And then they make some decisions that make you wonder what's happening. And so it looks like there is a panic mode at Treasury because perhaps they have been having a cash crunch, and the bilateral arrangements that they wanted to have with rates that are, much lower than market rates have not worked because those countries themselves have needed lending from the World Bank and the IMF. And the deal with the IMF and the World Bank is it can be very good rates. It's just a matter of how you present yourself. A, and B, it's a matter of, are you really creditworthy? Because your creditworthiness really determines how much we are going to charge you for it. We are not doing better in any of the two, so hence the expensive loans.
Pretty much. Now, Abraham, the government has already planned to spend 3.2 trillion in this financial year. Fine. But it doesn't seem that they're going to spend that, given the amount of borrowing, therefore. Can you also tackle that aspect? But the Ukuri Yatani came in saying, well, you're going to say, in the next couple years, what we're going to do now is restructure our debt, get into an area where it's manageable, that we can sort of see the future. But now, these short loans that we're going for, this increased domestic borrowing that we're doing in the country, is it not him saying, well, I had that plan now, but because of COVID, I have to put it aside in the meantime?
I think sometimes desperate times call for desperate measures.
Yes.
And I think that's what they're doing.
Yes.
But you don't manage finance that way. Everything must be within a context of a bigger plan. Now, if you look at our budget of 3 trillion, if you bring it down to 3 shillings, for purpose of illustration, out of those 3 shillings, 1 shilling goes to debt service, 1 shilling goes to public wage bill. So it is the last shilling that goes to expenditure, to everything else. Everything else, including development expenditure, is in the last 1 shilling. In terms of collection, KRA only collects a maximum of 2 shillings, probably 1 shilling and 50 cents. So the other 150 cents or 1 shilling has to be borrowed.
Yes.
That is the reality.
Yes.
So for us to change that reality, we have to reduce either the wage bill or the debt service substantially for there to be an impact.
Yes.
Reducing anything else in these other categories has no impact. That's why you see whenever you reduce travel, you reduce tea in the offices, those have no impact. It is the two elephants in the room, the debt service and the public wage bill. Debt service, yes, as I've said, and you can see he's alluding to it, there are many ways of bringing that down. That can maybe be brought down by half.
Yes.
But you see, when you go to those tables, you must be full disclosure. You must put everything on the table. You must be put to account. This money that you got, where did it go? What did you do with it? So those hard questions have to be answered.
Yes.
And you see, so and that can be done. As for the public wage bill, we have the SRC. SRC has a very clear plan on it, but I think the political will has been a bit weak on it, because if we follow through, because we cannot afford to the kind of size of government we want.
Yes.
And now, as you can see, with the new proposals on the table now with EBI, that bill will probably go up further. So for me, unless we cure these two monsters, that is the public wage bill and the debt service,
yes,
we will be in this situation for a long time to come. But unfortunately, it's not waiting for us. Something is coming at us. And that thing is that we will reach a point where we may not be able to meet our obligations. Because our income is shrinking, our expenditure is going up. That is that. So something has to give. And the best way for it to give is for us to deal with the situation of the debt service and the public wage bill.
Yes, pretty much. Therefore, let's move on to the next issue that we have for you this morning. Now, Safaricom PLC has reported a reduction of 33 billion shillings in its half-year profit, representing a 60% slide in earnings from 35.2 billion shillings last year. Now, this is the telco's first profit dip in the mid-year review since 2012. Safaricom attributes this decline to a dip in M-Pesa revenues from a rollout of free cash transfers below 1,000 shillings to 35.9 billion shillings from 42 billion shillings last year. Now, according to Safaricom, the impact of the free cash transfers was tabulated at 6.1 billion shillings to include 4.5 billion shillings hit on transfers and a 1.6 billion shillings hit on payments. Safaricom Acting Chief Finance Officer Ilana Dersey says that free cash transfers have weighed hard on the company's half-year results. M-Pesa revenues now account for 30% of the total revenues in comparison to 33% last year. Safaricom has nevertheless recorded a 14.1% growth in mobile data revenues to 22.2 billion shillings from 19.5 billion shillings on the back of increased data usage by customers, with the average chargeable gigabyte per user growing 33% to 1.4 GB in this period. Fantastic. Ramoge, I mean, they're saying, wow, if you look at our results, we've had that dip because of these free cash transfers below 1,000 bob. Fine, but haven't we seen a shift to mobile money transactions? I mean, the mobile wallet is now at 300,000 shillings, and they control 99% of business-to-business transactions within the economy. You would think, therefore, that Ramogi, they'll blame something different as opposed to the free cash transfers below 1,000 bob.
Well, I think on this one I shall be the devil's advocate. Corporate Kenya. Corporate Kenya has interesting explanations usually when they make losses. And we've had all sorts of them and coming in all fashion, including Kenya Airways that have blamed everything from the weather to the violence in Central African Republic, everything,
yes,
except to themselves. But you know, this is a one-time thing for Safaricom, so
yes,
they can be forgiven for their sins. What I wanted to take note of is M-Pesa really targets the bottom of the pyramid. And so they are big on the guys on at the bottom of the pyramid. And so if indeed they gave a waiver on the fees for the people at the bottom of the pyramid, it was bound to affect them in some way. The other challenge that I noticed is while, yes, there was that, that waiver, the people at the bottom of the pyramid, many of them were not paying by M-Pesa, because the business person that you're supposed to pay by M-Pesa will still ask you to send the money to withdraw that money. And so they were still using cash. They really didn't care whether it was going to make them sick or not. They were still using cash. And so that affected Safaricom's business. But that that loss would have been mitigated if they were the ones controlling the data market, in the same way they are controlling M-Pesa and the voice market.
Yes.
But the data market, because a lot of us were working from home and subscribed onto the internet, and you needed stable internet. So that meant either Safaricom or the others.
Yes.
So they don't control a very big chunk of that market. There's Jamii Telecom, there's Liquid Telecom, there's Wananchi or Zuku, if you like. If they bought the other three, they probably would control everyone and get that money into the books.
Pretty much. All right, Abraham, yes, I saw you smile. Should they have a different explanation as why they have that dip?
They should, because, yes, given there was some loss because of the free transfers.
Yes.
But there's been a very feeble attempt to explain what was the positive effect of people being told to go there.
Yes.
So that figure, they've not spoken about that. They've been silent. If you look at the numbers critically, the voice has fallen by 3 billion.
Yes.
M-Pesa has fallen by 6 billion. So SMS has also fallen. So the only thing that went up was data. You see, so basically, what we are saying is they're also losing market share in the voice.
Yes.
They're losing market share in the SMS.
Yes.
So for the M-Pesa, yes, they've lost income on the lower end because of the free transfers, but there was massive business that moved their way, because everywhere you went, people, especially the middle class, restaurants, where people are being pushed. So what was the effect of that? You see, so for me, yes, it may be an explanation. As I say, it is the truth, but not the whole truth.
Yes.
So this is a case of it is being the truth, but
Yes.
not the whole truth. The whole truth, they know what really, and as my brother said, let's give it to them.
Yes.
But that's not the full explanation. But what the numbers tell you is that, one, they are losing market share on the voice, on the SMS. They're not losing market share on M-Pesa, but their revenue went down on M-Pesa.
Yes.
Their data went up, and that was expected. But if you go to the cash, they have actually, for the first time I've seen, they're cash negative. So you see, so there is more
Yes.
to these numbers than, but again, you see numbers are limited.
Yes.
Because yes, you can see them. All you can do is ask the questions we're asking. They have the answers. They may, and I don't think they have to tell us. But the question is, those things tell a different story. So in a nutshell, for me, I think what should be bothering them is why they're losing market share in the voice,
Yes.
in the SMS,
Yes.
and what they can do to mitigate, because the people have gotten used to the free transfer. Why don't they look for a model whereby once the CBK calls it off, how can they make money? Maybe by lowering the tariff, because they have down there they have the numbers, no doubt about it.
Pretty much. All right, I'm going to come back to you, Abraham, because we do know now that the next piece of conversation will probably point out to how they've been affected by themselves. Now, Ramogi, when I told you that AIB access just did really look at what has been one of the quarters that have been affected mostly by international investor flights from the country. And they are saying that one of those biggest affected are Safaricom and the banking quarters in our boroughs. Could we say that this could be one of those areas that have affected Safaricom? And my question to you, Odhiambo Ramogi, is why would somebody run away from Safaricom when indeed during this pandemic they were sort of positioned as the beneficiaries of the pandemic, as Abraham is saying?
That's an interesting conversation because it points to an issue of risk analysis of Safaricom as a company and the environment in which it does business.
Yes.
On one hand, you'd appreciate also the fact that the investors in Safaricom might have need of that money, and so they are not running away from Safaricom. They're just taking their money so that they can stay with their money at this time of pandemic. I remember there was a lot of panic saving in the second quarter, whether it was local or global, but there was a lot of panic saving and people were not investing. On the other hand, the risk analysis for Safaricom as a company, I don't see there's much risk to it in terms of its organizational base. I think there's a lot of strength there,
Yes.
both locally and globally. Vodacom still remains a brand to consider. The only challenge that would make someone like me, perhaps, I'm assuming I'm a potential investor,
Yes.
would be the economic environment in which Safaricom operates.
Yes.
And if you look at the Kenyan economy, you look at the debt management, you look at the corporate casualties that are coming out of the same economy, which we are being told every day is growing spectacularly. If you look at that economic environment, you would want to be afraid and you say, let me call it a day. I think I've spent enough time with this company. I like it. It has made me money, but let me call it a day.
Yes.
So for me, I think the issue might be to do more with the economic environment than with the strength of Safaricom as a company itself.
Pretty much. We take a short break here on Business, and once we come back, Abraham is coming back to weigh on why an international investor may want to leave Safaricom during this COVID-19 pandemic, given the fact that, well, they are the performers, they control our booze, so why leave? You're still watching Business at Metropole TVKE across all your social media platforms.